It's Friday, December 14th. Shout out to my beautiful daughter, Layla Simone McCarthy. Today's her birthday, so a happy birthday to Layla. I want to thank
Happy birthday, Layla.
Happy birthday, Layla. I want to thank you guys for coming on today. We're going to talk about something really important. The 2018 the 2018 Farm Bill just actually was passed in the House and the Senate. And we're going to talk about hemp and how hemp is going to revolutionize and change the way that we see farming in this country. It's going to change the way that we look at farming for our urban farmers and also for our Black communities. And so today I have an awesome guest panelist on, and we're going to talk about this and really dive deep. Eric, please, first and foremost, let me introduce our co-host with Eric Range. Eric.
Hi, everybody. Welcome and happy Friday to you all. I hope you guys have had a very powerful and impactful week. Lord knows it has been a busy week for us, coming off of a great weekend last weekend with our leadership retreat in Atlanta, and also a huge win. Can't forget Minorities for Medical Marijuana was voted the industry organization of the year. And you can imagine coming off of a win like that, this week has been a very busy week for us, a lot of discussions. And, this farm bill is just picking it up even more. So I think that, the discussion is very timely. I'm excited because I've always said from before that, hemp offers us a lot more opportunities than even the cannabis and medical marijuana side of things. So when we talk about it, we're going to get into some of that stuff today. So I'm excited. But I think the Farm Bill as a whole offers even more than just the hemp side of things. And so we're going to get into some of that discussion. I can't wait. We got two wonderful guest speakers on today, and they're going to share with you. They actually just were on a panel, was it yesterday, talking about the hemp industry, talking about farming in our communities and so on. So I think that, again, this is just the perfect time for us to have this conversation. So I look forward to it.
Thank you, Eric. First of all, I want to introduce Dr. Jackson Garth. Jackson, please introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Dr. Jackson Garth, and I am the National Director for Industrial Hemp for Minorities for Medical Marijuana. Also, I work with industrial hemp processors. And our whole focus is to help farmers get the product in the ground and then process it and get it to the exit strategy in terms of the end user, whatever product they'll end up using, whether it's CBD or industrial products.
Awesome. Thanks, Jackson. So happy to have you on. And next we have Ms. Cass Odom. Cass, introduce yourself. Okay.
Look like she may have some. You there, Cass? Looks like she has a little bit of a delay.
Well,
yeah.
No problem.
Go ahead.
Well, first what we'll do is, Cass, are you there with us?
Okay, I think I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Introduce yourself.
All righty. I had to dial back in. My apology. I'm Cass Odom. I'm the National Director of Public Policy and Research for Minorities for Medical Marijuana. And it's a pleasure to join you guys today. Glad to get back on the call.
That's right. And she's also, tell me about your business, Cass FX.
Okay. Yeah, Cass FX LLC is my consulting business. I'm a political strategist. I've worked extensively through the political sphere, as I call it. I've worked with Bernie Sanders in 2016. I've worked extensively with Stacey Abrams here in Georgia and part of her Blue Institute, which I joined with Ben Jealous and Stacey to train quite a few of us to work in politics on national elections. And I'm excited to join you, Roz, and Eric, and Dr. Garth and the entire executive staff and all of our members with M4MM to push the issue of minority inclusion in the cannabis industry. Raj, you've done a great job, so thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
No, thank you so much. So we're gonna get down to it. So we have a situation where, prior to this 2018 Farm Bill, the utilization of CBD, hemp-derived CBD, was kind of a gray area. And so, Eric, do you want to just kind of give a quick overview about the Farm Bill and the hemp provision per se and what that includes, and just a little bit of detail about why it's important that now it's passed and what it's going to mean for a new industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think before we got to this point where we are right now with this new farm bill, for a long time, even once we had begun prohibition with cannabis and hemp was lumped into that, even during that time, the country, U.S. has been one of the major importers of industrial hemp across the country. And so when you think about it, we've always been using industrial hemp products, but we have now gotten to a place where we're just starting to begin to cultivate hemp in this country again. And that began back in 2014 with the 2014 Farm Bill, where we, at that time, we started to look at how states can begin to implement pilot programs and research programs to learn about the different avenues and opportunities for industrial hemp in their country. So since 2014, we've seen an explosion both in a return to cultivation of hemp, but also an explosion of the use of the one cannabinoid in isolation, CBD, which has really turned into a huge market. It's almost like if you look at the medical marijuana industry being a sector of this overall industry, the adult use being another sector. Well, CBD has in its own right become a sector, a part of this industry. And so we've seen an explosion of companies begin to launch up and sell different products. We've seen wholesalers, we've seen white labeling, we've seen just a complete almost takeover, if you will, when it comes to CBD. But it was always in this gray area because most of the CBD that was manufactured or cultivated and manufactured here in the U.S. was done so under a state law, which their state implemented rules that allow for them to begin to cultivate, begin to start commerce and so on. And every state was very different in how they did that. And it really limited the ability to take hemp across state lines and into different places, depending on what the rules were in your state. But this new farm bill now kind of changes the whole game when it comes to industrial hemp. And I think we're going to continue to see even more cultivation of the plant here. But we're also going to start to see a lot more manufacturing to take place in the coming years. And I think Dr. Garth will certainly be able to talk to us a lot about what processing offers, or what it looks like in terms of processing moving forward, and how that may be able to create jobs and opportunities for our communities to be able to reap the benefits of this new industry.
Great. Let me just read off a couple of things for you guys. The Farm Bill itself, it really was about farmers. And so the Farm Bill is supposed to help farms make decisions about their future. Do you know the SNAP program, which is the nutritional program for moms and for kids who are financially, unable to buy their food, and they need support? The SNAP program is a part of the Farm Bill. They also have commodity pricing of products. There's business planning protection that's a part of the Farm Bill. Crop insurance program. There's going to be USDA guaranteed farm limit loans for farmers up to $1.5 million. That's a part of the Farm Bill, as well as farmers market funding. There's going to be actually funding for people that want to be able to develop a farmers market in their area or in their municipality. There's funding for that. I know of a young lady who has a bus that is traveling around the food deserts within communities of low-income communities, and having a bus that actually has a farmer's market on the bus. And so they're going to be funding projects like that. They're also doing organic food research, and they're doing farmer training and outreach. And that's something that M4MM, we want to get involved with in talking about farmer training, outreach, and specifically when it comes to hemp. So as we look at this and as things are going on, this Farm Bill, it presents a lot for those agriculturists, those farmers who are looking to support, and they want to make sure that the ups and downs of their industry are balanced out. And so, but let it be known that the hemp provision, it was slid in there, and it was added. Senator McConnell who is the the majority lead in the Senate, he added this bill, and he's from Kentucky. So it's not by chance or by happenstance. And Kentucky is known for their hemp cultivation. So it's not by happenstance. And so the opportunity really presents itself to go to another level. And him wanting to do this, I'm quite sure there were some supporters in his state that want to see hemp legalized from a national perspective. Jackson, your thoughts on the legalization and where it's going to go from here?
Yes. Can you see me? Okay. Can you hear me, Ross? I'm just making sure. Okay. One of the things that I see that's going to happen is this, where initially everything was done based upon the farmer being able to get a license, and that's who had the power in terms of controlling everything. So one of the farmers I work with in South Carolina, she received her license out of 40 farmers. She was one of the 20 farmers because they added the original 20 back in, and she only has 17 acres, and she's an African-American woman. She had a tremendous amount of power. The shift is going to be now with the Farm Bill and how it affects Black and brown farmers is where once you had the power because you had that license, now you're going to potentially be squeezed out by individuals who have 10, 20, 30,000 acres and then can control the market, because larger companies are going to go to them and they'll have an exit strategy for those farmers. So when you think about everything being legalized, one of the main things that I wanted to do with Black and brown farmers is to make sure that I have start creating a collective. So then they know, even though you have 10 acres or 5 acres or whatever, I can pool those crops together to fulfill a nice CBD company, or potentially airplane parts or car parts or those types of things, because the smaller farmers with the acreage that they have for Black farmers won't be able to do that. And that's really the main focus, even though we have access to, my company has access to over 40,000 acres, and that's just 2 farmers. The problem that I see is in doing that, I could potentially make tons of money, but leave behind a lot of the Black and brown farmers. And they're saying, okay, yeah, I can grow this crop now legally, but what do I do with it? And that's the piece that we really have to make sure that we're helping the Black and brown farmers do, is make sure they're growing the right crop and then seeing on the back end what they're going to do. Because before you had a small amount of acreage that you could grow on. And in that, you just had to look on your return on investment and say, okay, I have 10 acres. I know CBD is going to be the main thing that I grow and grow for. And so that's the plant I'm going to grow in terms of male versus female. But what's going to happen is now there's going to be this huge increase of product. And what people are going to have to do is say, well, what am I growing for on the back end? And is that industrial parts? Is that CBD? What is that going to be grown for? And that's the market that they would then attract. Because before, it was just, you only had such a limited amount of supply that you could produce. You had to run the CBD. Now we're looking and saying, okay, short term, let's look at some of our farmers and say, you're going to be in CBD for X number of years, but that market will become saturated. But we'll put you forward in terms of looking at our contract with Boeing or Volvo or BMW for car parts and airplane parts, and we'll start growing your hemp from that. And that's the piece where you see some of these larger growers, they're going to have the ability and essentially the monopoly to do that because of their amount of acreage that our Black and brown farmers could potentially be left out of. So that's what we're really trying to focus on, is getting with, Black and brown farmers. And I always, I had someone on my LinkedIn page say, only Black farmers or only brown farmers that I was presenting. And I said, we have a responsibility as African Americans to make sure we're taking our knowledge, our investments, and our information to help the Black and brown farmers. Because if we don't, a lot of those farmers are going to be left behind, and they grow a product that they can't do anything with because they haven't been, contacted And then, yeah, they have access to grow it, but now they're like, well, what do I do with this product once I grow it?
Right. And Cass, you there's a provision, there's a part in the hemp bill, the original one, the first one that came out, there was a felon ban, and you were really passionate about the fact that that felon ban really limited individuals of color from participating. It was changed, and share with us, your thoughts initially when you saw that, and why it's so important for that felon ban it should be lifted, but at least amended so that people of color are able to participate in this industry.
Absolutely. Roz, in the beginning, the felon ban, there was a lull about it. There was no discussion at all about it. We were very, very passionate about social equity programs and initiatives in the cannabis space, but for some reason, the hemp space went there was an echo chamber of concern. And so when this came up in the end, I saw it kind of as a test case for how things could happen with cannabis if we are not proactive on that. The felon ban is just prohibitive. It's racially prohibitive language that has been placed into the Farm Bill, where basically the basic provision is that if you have been convicted of a drug-related felony, that you cannot participate in the industrial hemp business. And on the onset, it was a lifetime ban, and it has been reduced to a 10-year ban, and that was a compromise. But it is, with the federally prohibitive language in there, it is just, we talk about eradicating barriers and having access for minorities. And those folks who have been disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs have been people of color. And people, with this, and you also spoke about the SNAP program, which is also a very important aspect of what we're looking at, because most of the folks on food stamps are not people of color. But let's just take a look at the impact on marginalized communities. Let's take a look at just income, how it hits and impacts those in a certain income base. The holdup on the Farm Bill specifically was whether or not there would be increased work requirements to receive SNAP benefits. So you're also blocking a huge sector of folks who fall into that same income bracket from participating in this like booming industry that's about to just blow up because of the Farm Bill and the release of restrictions on industrial hemp. So, you're blocking out essentially, and you're creating almost a caste system where this industry is concerned, because you're restricting benefits, because Sonny Perdue plans on reintroducing the language requiring work requirements to receive SNAP benefits. The House bill actually passed with those requirements in place. So after this passes, that language is going to be introduced. So in that lies also the opportunity for us to really, really have an issue-based campaign to change that language, to strike that language, or somehow amend that language. So I'm excited about the initiative, that and the time you put, Rob, and showing that concern. So definitely looking forward to moving forward on that and showing our concern, because we want all people to have that opportunity to make money in this industry and participate in this industry.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
I was going to say, in addition to, when it comes to this felon ban, one of the things that I struggle with it as well is because it's not like we're talking about creating medicines. It's not like we're talking about creating or being a part of a industry or a part of the industry that needs to be highly regulated. You see what I'm saying? We are talking about potential jobs, a resurgence of white collar jobs in this community for manufacturing. Dr. Garth talked about, us being able to make airplane panels and car panels and stuff. Those are jobs that we desperately need in our communities. And when you talk about a felon ban, you're talking about taking away jobs that our communities desperately need and we deserve. We have been, overly policed and been the victims of this drug war. And now this new industry, which is bringing tons of economic benefit with it, is going to, in many ways, miss our communities if we don't fight against this felon ban. So, I agree with you, Cass. We definitely have some work to do in this regard.
And, you
time
know, my
ban
background, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No,
You know, I
go
love
ahead.
the criminal justice reform aspect of this was totally missed. And Roz knows I was upset because I know my language can be a little more colorful than most, but I see it as a Jim Crow ban on people of color, you know, based on, I mean, this is access, like you say, Eric, economic, access to economic, you know, improvement. And this is a whole new industry. And for folks to, in the brown and black communities, to be disproportionately impacted, for arrest rates to be 3.7% times higher than our white counterparts or anything related to this plant, for us to be on the sideline because of a felony, I mean, that it should be the opposite. There should be priority licensure. These should be the first people given access to job opportunities and to work training opportunities in this industry. They should be the first in line. So I hope that, you know, we can join forces with, you know, other activists and allies, because we've got a strong voice, Roz, Organization of the Year president, and we've got the access, and I know that we can get the word out and we can get this done. I'm excited. It's a great opportunity.
Let's make sure we go back and explain it and make sure that everyone understands that the U.S. defines industrial hemp as cannabis sativa plant containing 0.3% or less THC. Essentially, it's marijuana that won't get you high. The 1970 Controlled Substances Act lumped hemp along with marijuana. So this happened in 1970. So when they did this Schedule 1 ban, they lumped this plant called hemp with cannabis, with marijuana, and there's with no currently accepted medical use and high potential for abuse. The crop was illegal for anyone without a permit to grow it until the 2014 Farm Bill. Thank you, President Obama, who opened up the door for the conversation. And that's how the door started, cracked open. I just want to show you guys in regards to the amount of industrial hemp planted in the U.S. In 2015, it was less than 5,000 acres. In 2018, it's 32,000 acres. You cannot imagine now with legalization, this is going to go up to millions of acres. It's a simple plant to plant. It grows simply. Jackson, tell us about how it grows and how, you don't need a lot of fertilizer, and how it absorbs minerals and metals out of the earth. Talk to us about the plant.
That's one of the things that farmers are very excited about, is the fact that you don't even have to do crop rotation with this crop. So, somewhere in South Carolina, Georgia, you're going to be able to harvest this crop. You're going to be able to harvest industrial hemp 4 times a year. And it's going to help enrich the soil, clean it in terms of some of the nutrients, and just really help the land. So before, they had to do the crop rotation, and you had to have X amount of land. Now they can utilize their land and be more efficient and grow quarter after quarter with this product and make a higher yield on their return with industrial hemp. And so the ability to grow this for a lot of farmers has changed the game, because now they can immediately start seeing profits, where before, a lot of farmers were struggling to make money because they're waiting to see, okay, how many, whether it's soybeans or corn or whatever they're growing, peanuts, there wasn't a ton of profit there, where now they have that. So it's just a totally different game-changing product. The other thing I was going to say with industrial hemp, when you start looking at a lot of these farmers, there's not enough information. Like now we're getting information in terms of how to grow it, how to utilize it, what plant's going to go where. But one of the things that we really have to think about in terms of the African-American community is, we were told cannabis is going to be the big, it's the next coming of Jesus, cannabis, medical marijuana. And that was pushed so much, but I actually believe, as I see this, it was pushed so much to the Black community because really you found that the farmers and the white communities were really focused on industrial hemp and didn't want Black people to see the profits of industrial hemp. So now this farm bill passes, and a lot of African Americans are like, and what is that? Is it a big deal? And so we really that's the educational piece that we're really going to have to press out to the farmers, individuals that are not in the industry, but, have land, individuals trying to get in and do CBD, because we have to show the benefits of the product and separate, like you said, Roz, educate people. We were at a meeting last night, and some people still didn't know the difference between cannabis and hemp, and that's a general population thing where a lot of people are not going to know the difference and don't know the profitability and the earning potential of industrial hemp, because yeah, and I'm like, then that's something that I don't think they want us to know. And I say I'm saying white America doesn't want us to know that this stuff can be used for airplanes and car parts, and we're looking at it to do it for like directional drills.
It's too late for that, because we know.
Right,
I know,
right.
Roz knows,
Exactly.
Cass, we know. I think one of the things, and Cass, go ahead. You got a point, and I want to make a point after you say something.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited. Exactly what you're saying. Who was in that room, Dr. Garth? We were in the room with the head of the NAACP of Atlanta. I mean, come on. And this guy has no clue what's going on. And he had serious questions. And it was the first time. And you got to look at who's interested, whose ears are perking up. Do you know how hard it's been to have that ear in on the conversation? I mean, those are the ears that we really, really need to get involved in this conversation. So, Eric, it just ties in exactly where you were going with. I get excited. So, and who's listening? Who's excited? They want to know what's going on with the Farm Bill, how we can get Black farmers involved. So that connectivity is being made. There are so many opportunities, and we're right there. We're right there at the crux, ready to take care of it.
And I want other people, and see, this is where we also have to expand the conversation. I know we're talking about the Farm Bill, but the reason why I get excited about it is because of like what Dr. Garth said. There's so many things that we can do with this plant, and so many things we don't even know what we can do with this plant. One of the things about our communities, I'm talking Black and brown communities, I'm talking communities of poverty, we create out of necessity. But we need to learn how to create for the masses. We need to learn how to take products that we've made for our own communities, that we make in our kitchens, and take these things into industrial kitchens, take these things into co-packers and so on, and be able to scale these businesses up. I get excited because I know that we already create. I mean, we would talk about one part of the industry in particular. Let's talk about health and beauty products, and the types of health and beauty products we can make from hemp-derived CBD and all of these other things. When we talk about another part of it, we talk about food. We spoke about food deserts. Well, did you know that like the hemp seed is one of the most nutritious things that we can get from the plant? I mean, when I talk about this stuff, I get excited about hemp because it offers our communities so much more than we even begin to understand. Yes, we got to start with our farmers. We got to get our farmers on board. But I need everybody out there who's got this product that they've been, the shea butters, the hair products, all of the. I need y'all looking into CBD, looking into industrial hemp, and looking into the types of products you can make with this. Because we can get into this industry, but we can't be scared to do so. And so I'm glad to have this discussion. I mean, y'all see, I get excited about this stuff.
Hey, E, you excited, brother? You excited? So I want to show you a graphic, and the graphic shows you there was a big industry. It was the tobacco industry. The tobacco industry in Kentucky, during its heyday, in its height in 1919, over 600,000 acres harvested across the state. By the year 2018, that was decreased by nearly 90%. And so now soybeans are now the Kentucky's leading crop. But you better believe that those farmers that are in Kentucky, they're going to get hip to this, and they see this bill now opens up, and they can take all those acres of land and then now transition to hemp. So what I want to do is implore our Black farmers, our farmers, our Black families who have history of farming in our families. We have all of this land. How do we take this and be able to look at not only farming, but Jackson will tell you he wants to farm, buy the hemp from you, extract it, and then be able to sell it so that you can make the products. And that's where the actual, when it comes to the processing. And Jackson, I know you're passionate about that in the processing. Right. What do we have to do for processing? Why is that important?
And talk about the jobs, if you will, that come with that.
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things that in terms of on the processing side, what I saw, and one of the things I started talking, even when we first got started doing this, was I said, we have to be able to have the capital investment to own the processing. Because really, you think about the timber industry. I was talking to one of my partners who's a forester. He was saying what happens a lot of times in the timber industry is that farmer will sell, so the owner of the land sells the crop. There's a individual who's going to manage and kind of be more of a consultant to sell it to the processing facility. At that point, there's all these products that are made, but that landowner never sees the benefit of his trees. The thing that I wanted to do is make sure we control the entire process. And that's the thing that we've already had put our, flag in the ground and say, okay, we'll own the manufacturing. You create jobs of processing, running the heavy equipment, moving the bales. You're going to create in a certain process facilities, a nice in a certain small community, that's gonna create a lot of jobs there for those individuals. But then also when you look at the manufacturing, like you said, Eric, healthcare products, edibles, bath salts, things like that. That's another area where we really have to make sure we own that process as well. So you're not just saying, okay, the farmer gets, they sell their product and that's where it ends. When I'm always talking to farmers, the thing that I tell them is, if you have $1 million and you loan me $1 million and I give you a 200% return, you're excited because you got $3 million until you find out that I made $200 million on your $1 million. And now you're upset because you feel like you didn't get your full fair return on your investment. The thing that we're trying to make sure we do is by owning the processing facility and owning the manufacturing, we can allow our farmers to go the entire walk with us. So they're seeing the benefit of their hemp go into CBD oil, go into, and that means that they want to private label a CBD, they can do that. Go into honeys. I meet with a farmer this afternoon. He wants to use our biofuel or the bio product to create like certain honeys. And he wants to do so on all the farm area, he wants to do the beekeeping. I hadn't even thought about that. And the thing that we have to really make sure of is when we have ownership, then we can control the process. And in that, then everybody benefits. And, our thing that we believe in is pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. And that's what my partners and I always say is, let's let the farmers benefit from the beginning to the end, from seed to sale. Farmers need to benefit from that because that's really how we'll help them create generational wealth.
And in addition to that, beyond the processing and even when we talk about the manufacturing of products and so on, I'd love to see across our country and in our urban cities for us to build different, product testing and, product testing labs and, facilities for people to be able to come in and create their products, co-packing facilities where we can share these resources. And, folks who are trying to start a small business, instead of you having to raise all types of capital to build out a processing and a co-packing facility and so on, you're able to come to, a centralized hub where other people are creating products and you guys could maybe even share off of the marketing, share off of the sales force and so on. We have to be able to understand that the only way that we are going to really gain any significant portion of this market is by working together. And that goes from the farmers all the way up to the folks who are creating products.
And Eric, that's one of the things when Cass and I were on that panel yesterday, I said, everybody has a certain skill set that they had before this industry. And I think if people really utilize that gift that they were getting, that they've been working on for years, and apply that to this industry in that section, we all would do well together. So, I know I'm going to need, like you said, the research and all that stuff. That's just not my gift. And I'll just find somebody who's doing that. If we all work together, we all will really do well because, unfortunately for us, it's very difficult to say we're going to be totally vertically integrated and you own every single part. You might get 50% of it, 20%, 10%, whatever. But the entire thing from seed to sale is going to be very difficult. And that's the benefit of us working together, because now as an organization or as a co-op or whatever we create, we all do well off the product. And that's a big deal, because before, people would get pushed out, and you see groups fighting to say, I want this position to do this same thing that you're doing. Now, if we're saying we understand what our role is, we all can benefit together. That synergy effect, that synergistic effect, you know?
Let's talk about again, making sure everyone is on here, because I'm going to just pretend like you don't know all the different uses of hemp. And I want to go through a couple just to make sure that you're clear on what it looks like. Hemp, again, used for human food. So like, it's like if you eat nuts, it's great. It's high in essential fatty acids and amino acids, which are great for a healthy heart, for cholesterol, for folks who are dealing with anything from a cardio perspective, a cardio heart perspective. It's great for pet food and for bedding. You can put it in your cat litter. It's great for cats, for their coat, to make it more shinier. The hemp plant is also known for containing oils used for body lotions and essential oils. So it has a great EFA content, which aids in the regeneration of cracked and dry skin. It's an amazing moisturizer. It's oil-based. It can use, so they put the hemp and it can be used in an oil-based paint, which will allow the paint to last longer. And great for clothing, such as jeans, sports, t-shirts. Like literally, it has antimicrobial properties to it. So I had a gentleman that had a hemp-derived shirt that was made from hemp, and he said he was wearing it for 4 or 5 days to just see how long he could wear it without it starting to stink. And he basically wore it for like 5 days without you even smelling the odor. A normal t-shirt, a normal cotton t-shirt that absorbs odor and moisture, you wouldn't be able to do that. So the things I want you to realize with hemp, there's something called hempcrete. Just imagine if we could take hempcrete, which is basically utilizing concrete and adding hemp to it, and it makes the construction product that you use for building a house that much stronger, as well as it cuts down in regards to any type of mold or things of that nature that you may get in a house, especially in warm climates. Imagine if we could use this for countries like Jamaica, where there's hurricanes, and like Haiti. Talk about that a little bit, Eric or Jackson, how from an industrial standpoint, Jackson and I went to Hemp Inc., and shout out to Bruce and the folks over at Hemp Inc. We were their guests last year, and we were able to actually see the processing of taking hemp from a straw, a hay material, and being able to turn it into the sawdust. And what was that impact on you, Jackson, and about the industrial use of it? I mean, that's where we need to be. We need to have industrial.
That was the thing that stuck with me in terms of the amount of products. I didn't know prior to that trip that hemp, you could make car parts and airplane parts. Like you said, hempcrete. The thing that, and this is really what I got from that was CBD is the low-hanging fruit, and it will fund the industrial products. But those industrial products will be where the major money is for your major players, Boeing and Lockheed and Volvo and Mercedes. And you start looking at the hempcrete, being able to fund that. There's a house down in, like, we do Stormwood. There's a house down in Panama City. And if you look around, the entire area, Mexico Beach and all that, was torn apart. And this one house, he built his house out of hempcrete, and his house is still standing. And it was just like an eye opener. And you're going to see a shift down in storm areas, like you said, areas that they're disastrous for hurricanes. That's going to be a huge surge because it comes every year. From September to November, you have storm season, hurricane season. So a lot of these industrial products are going to be big because they're going to be such huge contracts when you think about on the economic development side and the amount of jobs that it's going to create. But we have to use the CBD to fund that, to create those products. But when you get those contracts on the backside of the more industrial side, that's going to be extremely huge.
Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, let me talk a little bit as well in regards to You know, part of not only the hempcrete, you also have insulation that can be used in building. You have biofuels that can be made from it. But, you know, part of what has taken those parts of the industry so long to take off is the fact that right now CBD is king. You know, hemp seeds are queen, if you will. And so you can command much larger prices for those products than you can some of the hempcrete. The other part of it is the lack of investment into research and the technologies to be able to produce these things on a large scale. You know, before Boeing or you know, these car manufacturers are going to really buy into using this as a mainstay in their products, they're going to need to see some level of sustainability over a long period of time in terms of their ability to come back to the table to get more products to make more cars for themselves or airplanes or whatever. So when I look at that, I look at right now we have an opportunity where, because the research hasn't been done, because the processing side, the manufacturing side is still lagging behind, we should be focusing our efforts, our investment dollars and so on. I know a lot of people get, you know, very excited about cannabis stocks and everything, but we should also be looking at, you know, some of the ventures that we can go into when it comes to leading the industry in some of these areas and not waiting for these parts to take off. And so, you know, I know myself and some others and Dr. Garth and others in the industry are certainly trying to, you know, begin to turn our attention to that, because we do see that as a long-term play. We do see that as a potential for creating white collar jobs in our communities and so on. You know, so there's a lot that can be done, but now is the time for us to get off the sidelines. And I'm talking directly to those individuals in this country who are accredited investors, you know, minority accredited investors, those who may not have, you know, $250,000, $500,000 to invest, but maybe have 50, 20, you know, 25,000 to invest. Get into groups. Let's pool our money together and let's begin setting the infrastructure for our communities to be able to reap the benefits of this. You know, Dr. Garth, I don't know if you can speak to, you know, some of the costs involved in setting up processing.
Because one of the things that Wednesday, I was in South Carolina in a meeting, and one gentleman had brought his son-in-law in, and what they do is they franchise pain clinics. And so they were very interested in this and production of CBD and all that, but also on the processing side. And one of the questions he asked was, well, why haven't we been to Boeing and why haven't we been to Bobo? And I was like, you know, I had to explain, like, we were limited by, you know, the licenses and the amount of crop that you can grow. And that's the thing that had slowed people down, because, you know, a processing facility could go anywhere from, depending on the building and everything else, $10 to $20 million. And so when you look at that cost for infrastructure, a lot of times, because you don't know, like the 20 acres that a license allowed wouldn't be able to sustain that facility. So that's been the prohibitive part. Now we look at it and you go, you know what? Not one facility is going to be able to handle the entire country. You're going to have a ton of facilities to process this stuff. And the thing that we have to think about is, like, you know, Raj was saying, like you said, Eric, you know, CBD is king right now, but what's going to happen is everybody's rushing to that because that's the payday right now. The problem with that is, as you have an influx of, you know, in a oversaturated market of CBD, the prices are going to go down. And then at that point, if you're not ahead of the curve in terms of looking at those other products and getting together, I love what you said about investment groups and pulling together and just really putting money together to invest in a process facility. Even if you couldn't do a whole process, you can do a clean room that might be $250,000 just to do CBD. And then from there, you fund it. So you pull out of your operations and then fund the processing. We have to really think about that, of reinvesting and working together. Because one facility may only be able to serve a 150 mile radius. So, you know, if you have something in South Carolina, it's not going to be able to do Texas. So we're going to have to really work across the country to get facilities built.
Absolutely. You're on mute, Roz. I don't know. I don't think we can hear you.
Okay, sorry about that. So there's already been conversation with different car manufacturers throughout the U.S. And you have in Germany and Europe, they're a little ahead of the times, and they're thinking about ways that you can use hemp to support that. And so I really challenge us as a community to not think about what we see right now in the here and now. Think about what's going to happen 10, 15, 20 years from now. And think about that you can see kind of the writing on the wall. And that's why we're having this Can I Talk with Roz, this particular subject. Next next week, we actually have some lovely ladies that are going to come on board and talk about how they're farming hemp right now with 50 acres, with 60 acres. We're going to talk about people that are doing it, and they're doing it from a medical and medicinal standpoint. But if you have those 1,000 acres and there's 2,000 acres, and that's where we need to figure out how do we collectively build together. So what we've done as an organization, we've created something called Sow the Land Hemp Company, and working with Jackson Garth and I. And it's all about, if you're looking to sow the land, we want to create this urban farmers collective where basically, if you're a farmer or you own land, but you don't want to farm it and you don't have the equipment, we want to give you the opportunity to have someone to support you in either leasing your land from you and then being able to share create a profit sharing model that we share in the profits. It's critical. And I think we got Cass back. Cass, talk about the economic impact of hemp farming. And what were some of the takeaways yesterday during your session there in Georgia?
Yeah, well, the takeaway, of course, commodities have been an issue with our farmers. And so Sonny Perdue saw this, or he heralds this in Georgia. He was a big supporter, and he's on the agricultural committee, that this is a way to shore up, funds for the loss on commodities. And hemp basically is going to be seen as a commoditized crop for Georgians. And the economic impact is also going to be felt in the cost of the bill. Over 10 years, it's an estimated $867 billion that are going to be spent funding the farm bill. So Roz, earlier you talked about a lot of the subsidies, a lot of the things that our farmers are going to be provided with as a result of the farm bill. And of course, SNAP actually covers 80% of the funds that are allocated towards the agricultural committee. So, and funding this farm bill. So what it means for our farmers is that this is a true economic impact to their bottom line, and we need to make sure that our minority farmers are at the table. So it was a very unique conversation we were able to have last night, because we have legislators who see that unique opportunity, and they want to make sure that our minority farmers are on board. So we were happy to be able to include M4MM and Dr. Garth in on that meeting, and he had great insight of how to connect those dots and make sure that our minority farmers are definitely in that, in that impact zone financially. It's going to be huge. I mean, the cost to our country is going to be $867 billion. So out of that, that's going to be a lot of funds allocated to farmers to initialize this industry. So I definitely see some huge opportunities. Are you there? I am losing this.
No, I'm here. Can you hear us?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. I was like, right. Uh-oh, wait a minute.
No. I think it's critical. And even from the public policy standpoint, so we don't know exactly how, let's say, for example, the bill passes, the president signs it. There's still going to be rules and regulations on how this is going to be managed. Correct, Cass?
Yeah, there are, each state, there are still going to be state regulations, everything, the whole build out on how, how the industry is going to be handled within each state. It's legal now. So Dr. Garth even, spoke to that fact. The licensing that's necessary, the licensing requirements are definitely no longer, there on the state level. So we're going to look at an entire change of access. And I'm interested. It hasn't rolled out totally how it's going to be, handled. And so as we see the infrastructure develop around the law for both compliance and licensure, it's it's going to be interesting to see how it's handled. I don't know. The devil is in the details, of course, and all the details have not been hammered out. One thing that's interesting in the Farm Bill, though, that was of concern to me is that a lot of the money, the funds that are appropriated towards conservation, those funds were snatched out of the Farm Bill. And when we look at conservation, we're looking at cover crops and field rotation that impact environmental concerns. So when I was out in Denver, the environmental concerns were a big issue impacting both cannabis and it's eventually going to impact hemp. So, and we talk about making sure that we're, telling our folks that we communicate with that are obtaining CBD, that these are safe CBD products. We need to look at how these crops are being, safeguarded from pesticides, and that whole safeguard, that safety net, the funding for that safety net was eroded in this farm bill. Most of those funds were taken out for conservation in the Farm Bill.
Absolutely. So,
hey, Cass, could I get you to say a few words on how this might impact national and federal research dollars for our land grant universities to get involved? We can't forget that we have to be a part of every facet of this, and that includes thought leadership and research and testing theories and learning more about the plant. So can you say a few words on that, Cass?
Absolutely. A lot of people don't realize that the agriculture and mechanical universities, like Alabama A&M University, we have in every state, southern state, a lot of agriculture and mechanical universities. I think it's an interesting thing that these universities were agriculture and mechanical to kind of limit the educational opportunities for African Americans post-slavery. Now it gives us a unique opportunity at universities like Southern University, and they've come ahead and having some funding opportunities for research. It's a very unique opportunity for our land grant universities to be a part of the state funding for research. We have that unique opportunity with Morehouse Medical right here in Atlanta, and with Fort Valley State, Savannah State. These are all universities actually that have entered the conversation about economic opportunities for grants. And as this is legalized, I mean, industrial hemp is legal. I mean, we can look at this as like a prototype for cannabis being legalized. There are unique opportunities that are going to open up both in all of our agricultural centers, the technology down at Tuskegee University, home of George Washington Carver. They're looking at some unique opportunities. So I have a meeting with some folks down there who I attended Tuskegee, and they are uniquely interested, like, what's going on with this cannabis thing? So I think, that's going to be a huge thing. We want to create, we want to initialize that conversation with students who have, a unique interest in seeing this as an economically viable, option for them once they're out of, the university, that we can set them up for success in this industry. So definitely. And I think, Roz, we talked about some programmatic things that we want to put in place, outreach to the universities to make sure that we're really strengthening, the thought process. Dr. Shonda Messias has initiated some things down at Southern. We've initiated some things with awesome folks. Cheryl is doing some stuff down there, that Cheryl Murray Powell, and shout out to her for always being a visionary. So definitely, Eric. I can't speak enough to the unique opportunity.
And Cass, you really nailed it, that this presents an opportunity for our HBCUs to be able to create a whole department or division or a class or classes about hemp farming, the agricultural part of it, going from that to production. So I'm excited about it. I think we have to keep talking about it. We can't let go. We can't stop. As we start to wrap up, I want to give each of you guys just, a minute to just to give an aha, like what's your aha and what do you want to say to people that are listening to how to stay engaged and how to make sure that they don't lose sight of what's going on with this hemp provision, and that now that hemp looks like it's going to be legal. And I'll start with you, Jackson.
For me, I'm not on mute, am I?
No, you're good.
Okay. For me, it really is, if you own land, please get in touch with Minorities for Medical Marijuana. And Roz for Solar Land Hemp Organization, hemp product, because we need to have all farmers who are all individuals, black and brown, who own land to work together. That is the biggest thing, because if we wait too long, you're going to be on the outside looking in and then saying, what am I going to do with this product? We need to get ahead of the curve to make sure we can help control the industry and dictate terms on how we would handle things versus waiting and having those terms dictated to us. So, Raj, make sure as you're doing everything that everyone has your contact information or the contact information when they'll reach out, because that is big. We have to make sure every single individual who owns land is getting with us so we can go ahead and start helping them move the process along and seeds, farming, and then processing.
Right. If everyone look on your screen, you'll see, and I know you guys may not be able to see it, but it's Can I Talk with Roz. Here's our email address. Put in the subject line, sow the land. Email us if you have land, if you have an interest, if you want to put money into to look at doing a process center. If you have a product idea, we're going to start taking a database of people that are very specifically engaged with hemp and want to be involved.
Right.
Cass, one final word from you, Cass. What are your thoughts?
To take a look at this as an entry point for them. Where do you fit into this? How can you be effective in this industry? And Jackson has a very valid point when he talks about, what do you do right now? You know, I'm into policy and compliance. I can't wait to get my hands into that aspect of what's going on in industrialized hemp. So make sure that you find your sweet spot of what's going on and that you see this as a us, industry and not them. And we need to decide whether or not we're going to be seen as convicts and by the felon ban or consumers, or whether or not we're going to be corporations and cultivators. And so I want to encourage everyone who's in earshot of this to really, really look for their sweet spot in this industry and to look forward to seeing cannabis follow a close step with hemp. I'm very excited. It's an exciting time to be part of the conversation. Was I on mute?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Cass, you nailed it. I will say, because find your sweet spot. For example, I just received an offer, and now I'm part owner in a nutrient company. Nutrients is high in the totem pole, but everyone, you're going to need some type of nutrients for your plant. So think about if we're able to capitalize on that and be able to then work with folks from a nutrient standpoint. There's several entry pockets. If you want to be involved, if you want to get more information, if you want to stay updated, you can text M for MM to 420-420. That means you put in the numbers, you put the phone number, you put 420-420, and in the message box put M for MM, and we'll keep you abreast of what's going on from a hemp update perspective. Eric, your thoughts and what's your takeaways and what do you see is something that we need to hold on to as we go forward with this conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the takeaway for me is that our time is now. We have to move with a sense of urgency. We have to become the experts in our field. We have to partner up. We have to cooperate with one another. We just have to be at the table. And I saw someone in the comments on Facebook say, we don't need to be at the table. We need to create the table. And I think the hemp industry gives us an opportunity to really and truly create a completely new table. So I am just excited at all of our guests and all of the comments they shared with us today. Thank you guys for being on. Thank you to everybody who tuned in today. I hope that you again had a very powerful week. I hope that you take this weekend and re-energize and recuperate, spend some time with family, let them love on you, and let's get back to work next week. All right, we'll see you guys again later.
Bye-bye.
Roz, you're on mute again. We miss you.
Here. So next week, we're going to have Cheryl Murray Powell on. She's an agricultural attorney. She's going to talk about her clients and how she's entering them into the hemp industry. We're going to have someone on that's farming hemp out in Colorado, and another female farmer up in Canada that's farming hemp, literally with 50 acres of land, and she figured it out. And she's producing products, she's farming hemp, and I can't wait to get these ladies on. So thank you guys so much for being on with Can I Talk with Roz. I appreciate you so much, and have a great day and a great weekend. See ya. Thank you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.